The Prestige 15 is a new thin and light laptop from MSI featuring Intel's latest 10th gen CPUs, so let's check it out in this detailed review and help you decide if it's a laptop you should consider. Starting with the specs, my unit has Intel's new 10th gen Comet Lake 6-core CPU, the i7-10710U, what a nice name. Before 10th gen, the U-series chips only went up to 4 cores, so this now means we can get 6 cores in thinner and lighter machines. Unlike Ice Lake though, this is still based on their 14nm architecture. For the graphics, my unit has an NVIDIA GTX 1650 Max-Q, so it should still be capable of some light gaming, which we'll check later. I've got 16GB of memory running in dual channel, a 15.6-inch 1080p 60Hz screen, though it's also available in 4K, and a 512GB NVMe M.2 SSD, though it does have 2 PCIe capable M.2 slots. The Prestige 15 is available in a few configurations, including a smaller 14-inch model. You can find examples and updated prices linked in the description. For network connectivity, it's got the latest Wi-Fi 6, so 802.11ax support and Bluetooth 5. It's too thin for an Ethernet port though, so you'll have to use a dongle if you need that. The metal lid has a dark blue sort of color to it with a clean and subtle MSI logo in the center. The interior is also all metal with that same dark matte blue, and there are blue trims around the edges of the machine and around the touchpad. Design-wise, it looks a little similar to MSI's PS63. Overall, the build quality felt very nice for a slimmer machine, thanks to that all-metal build. The weight is listed at 1.6 kilos, though mine was approaching 1.7 kilos. The total weight increases to 2.1 kilos with the 90-watt power brick and cables for charging included. It's quite a portable 15-inch machine, at 35.7cm in width, 23.4cm in depth, and just 1.6cm thick. This allows the screen to have thin bezels at 7.5mm on the sides. The 15.6-inch 1080p 60Hz IPS level screen has a matte finish and viewing angles were fine. I've measured the panel with the Spider 5 and got 95% of sRGB, 68% of NTSC, and 73% of Adobe RGB. Fair results. At 100% brightness, I measured the panel at 291 nits in the center with an 840:1 contrast ratio. Again, fair results, but nothing really impressive. Expect much better results with the 4K panel option, as MSI claim it's got 100% of Adobe RGB coverage. There was some minor backlight bleed in this worst case test, but I never actually noticed this while viewing darker content, but this will vary between laptops and panels. There was some screen flex, though less than expected considering its thinness due to the metal exterior. The hinges felt sturdy enough, and the screen can bend all the way back. The F12 key is a shortcut to flip the screen. This is meant to allow you to quickly push the screen back and flip it to show things to someone in front of you. It was easy to open up with one finger. The weight felt well balanced and no issues at all using it on my lap. Despite the thin screen bezels, the 720p camera is located above the display in the center. This is what the camera and microphone look and sound like on the MSI Prestige 15. Here's how typing sounds, and this is what it sounds like when we set the fan speed to maximum. So you can still hear me over the fan. The keyboard has white backlighting which illuminates all keys and secondary key functions. Key brightness can be adjusted between 3 levels or turned off by using the F8 key. There's no numpad, but I don't personally use it anyway. Overall, I really liked typing with the keyboard. However, the keys were a little shallow feeling to press. Here's how typing sounds to give you an idea of what to expect. There was minor keyboard flex while pushing down hard, likely due to the metal body, and I found the letter keys needed 56 grams of force to actuate, and it's got 1.5mm of key travel. The touchpad uses precision drivers, and like many of MSI's other recent laptops, it's stretched out and is quite wide. In general, I enjoyed the extra space, and I never had any problems with it getting in the way while typing. The times that I did touch it while typing, nothing happened, so the palm rejection seemed decent. There's also a fingerprint scanner in the top left corner of the touchpad, and I found this to work quite fast for unlocking the laptop. On the left from the back, there are 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C ports. Both can be used to charge the machine, support Thunderbolt 3 and DisplayPort, followed by a HDMI 2.0 output and 3.5mm audio combo jack. On the right from the front, there's a UHS 2 microSD card slot and two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports. On the back, there are just air exhaust vents towards the bottom and left corners, while the front just has a subtle indentation for you to get your finger in to open the lid. The base of the machine is more of that matte blue color, and the bottom panel is also metal. There are some holes for air intake towards the vent, and the two speakers are found near the front. The speakers are okay, maybe a little below average. There was a little vibration in the palm rest at max volume, but it seemed to get loud enough, and the latency mon results looked alright. The bottom panel was easily removed by taking out 11 Phillips head screws. Once inside on the left, we've got the Wi-Fi 6 card, two M.2 slots just above the battery on the left, and two memory slots near the center. The laptop is powered by a 4-cell 82 Wh battery, and I've tested it with the screen brightness at 50%, keyboard lighting off, and background apps disabled. The battery was one of the best I've ever tested. These sorts of thin and light ultrabook machines typically last a lot longer than the gaming laptops I usually test due to having lower powered specs. Though the Prestige 15 does still have discrete graphics available. I was getting over 9 hours watching YouTube and 2 hours while playing The Witcher 3 at medium settings capped to 30 FPS with Nvidia's battery boost. It also charges using either of the two Type-C ports on the left-hand side with the small included 90-watt adapter. The laptop comes with MSI's Creator Center software installed, which is basically the control panel to manage it. By enabling Creator Mode, we can configure the amount of resources and priority of specific applications to try and optimize performance for them. We can use this to swap between 3 performance modes, which from lowest to highest are Eco, Comfort, and Sport. We've also got the option of leaving fans on auto speed or enabling cooler boost for max speed. Let's take a look at thermals next. Air is pulled in underneath the machine through the holes towards the back. It then gets exhausted through the vents below the screen. Inside there are a couple of fans, and a single heat pipe is shared between processor and graphics. Thermal testing was completed in an ambient room temperature of 21 degrees Celsius, so expect different results in different environments. At idle, both the CPU and GPU were looking fine. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU workloads, and are meant to represent worst-case scenarios as I ran them for extended periods of time. The gaming results towards the upper half of the graph were tested by playing Watch Dogs 2, as I find it to use a good combination of processor and graphics. The stress test results shown on the lower half of the graph are from running the Ada64 CPU stress test with only the stress CPU option checked, and the Heaven GPU benchmark at max settings at the same time to fully load the system. Whether gaming or under combined CPU and GPU stress test, thermals were the lowest with Eco mode enabled, as this caps the power limits and performance. When actually playing this game in Eco mode, it wasn't very playable due to the limits. We'll see some FPS benchmarks soon. This is why temperatures rise when we step up to comfort mode, and then again to the highest performance mode, sport mode. By simply setting the fan to max speed from automatic, the CPU temperature lowers by 10 degrees, a nice improvement. Applying an undervolt to the CPU didn't change thermals in the stress test, but it did help slightly with this particular game. These are the average clock speeds for the same tests just shown. Eco mode had the lowest performance due to the lower power limit caps in place. Again, comfort mode stepped up the performance, then sport mode offers the best experience. Although we saw the CPU temperature drop by 10 degrees in the last graph with the fan at maximum, there wasn't actually any clock speed difference as there was no thermal throttling taking place. The limitation was power. This is why undervolting helped improve clock speed. However, it still wasn't possible to reach the full 3.9 GHz all-core turbo boost speed of the i7 chip in either of these workloads. These are the average TDP values during these same tests. In most cases, the GPU was hitting its max 35 watt limit, and the CPU seemed to be doing well considering this is a 15 watt chip. However, the laptop manufacturer does have the option of configuring a higher 25 watt TDP. Hardware Info reported total system power draw with the stress test running at 86 watts, and using an external power meter showed the laptop was consuming 88.7 watts from the wall. The Prestige 15 comes with a 90 watt power brick, so under these worst case combined CPU and GPU loads, it seems that we're hitting the limits of the power brick. And this is why the 3.9 GHz all-core turbo boost wasn't being hit. Both thermal and power limits of the actual machine were fine, but the power brick just couldn't give it any more. There was some battery drain, but I never saw it drop below 90%. Here are the CPU clock speeds while under a CPU-only stress test. The results are higher as the Nvidia graphics are now idle, so there's more power available and less heat. Sport mode allowed us to hit the full 3.9 GHz all-core turbo speed with this workload. We can see the temperature dropped back 11 degrees by undervolting the CPU, despite no difference in actual performance in this workload. When in a CPU-only workload like this, the average TDP was actually sitting on 36 watts sustained. Quite impressive for a U-series chip and well above its 15 watt base spec. To demonstrate how this translates into performance, I've got some Cinebench CPU benchmarks from these different modes. The results were quite surprising. In Sport mode, the multi-core score is actually in line with the i7-9750H, due to that higher power limit that's possible in CPU-only workloads. Given this is meant to be a content creator's laptop, I've also compared Adobe Premiere video exporting performance against the 9750H. And like Cinebench, with both chips running at the same 45 watt power limit, the 10th gen chip was exporting the same 4K video file 8% faster. Due to these results, I'll compare this 10th gen chip with the 9750H in a future video, so make sure you're subscribed for that one. So how do these different changes actually affect game performance? I've tested a couple of games to find out. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark at highest settings. As this test tends to be more GPU bound, especially at max settings, undervolting the CPU changed nothing. Comfort mode performed a little behind, with a larger difference seen in eco mode. Far Cry 5 was tested with the built-in benchmark at ultra settings. There wasn't too much difference between comfort and sport. A little boost to 1% low mostly, and then a bit extra to 1% low once undervolted. Eco mode meanwhile was significantly lower. As for the external temperatures where you'll actually be putting your hands, at idle it was quite cool, around the typical 30 degrees I usually see. With the stress tests in eco mode, it's a bit warm in the center, around the mid-40s towards the back. In comfort mode, it's a bit warmer now. Despite the fan speed increasing, the internals are now hotter. Here's the highest option, Sport mode, which gets to 50s in the center and mid-50s up the back, which was hot to the touch. Granted, you won't be touching there. When playing an actual game, it was similar. The WASD keys and wrist rest was fine, but the middle was quite warm. By setting the fans to max speed, the temperatures drop a fair bit. Here's what the fans sound like during these different tests. At idle in eco mode, it was completely silent. No fan noise or coil whine at all. With the stress tests going in eco mode, it was still fairly quiet. Playing games in this mode was hit or miss. Some worked okay, while others were unplayable. Comfort mode only rose fan speed a bit, and then they rose further in sport mode. In sport mode, the fan speed did gradually change between 44 and 47 decibels, despite the same consistent workload. With the fan at max speed, it was quite loud, or at least it sounded higher pitched than usual. Next, let's take a look at gaming performance. Although this is not designed as a gaming laptop, we should still be able to do some light gaming on the Nvidia 1650 Max-Q graphics. Let's start out with Dota 2, as it's not a particularly resource-heavy title. Generally, this is a CPU-bound test, and at low to medium settings, the performance is close to what we'd see with a much higher-spec gaming laptop. Although performance does dip a bit comparatively at Ultra, these are still good results and the game plays no problem maxed out. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature, and low to medium settings was again able to provide some high levels of performance. Although the frame rates drop down at higher setting levels a fair bit, we're still running with 60 FPS averages at epic settings. Overwatch was tested in the practice range, and it was still working perfectly fine at epic settings. The 1% low performance maxed out is higher than the refresh rate of the screen, and much higher frame rates were achieved at lower settings. CSGO was tested with the Uletical FPS benchmark, and this is another CPU-bound test, so the average frame rates at lower settings aren't too far off other higher-spec gaming laptops. The 1% lows are down a bit though, but in the end, 150 FPS at max settings is still quite good. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark, and over 60 FPS was still averaged at ultra settings in this test, with 100 FPS being hit at medium settings and below. Apex Legends was tested with either all settings at minimum or all settings at maximum, as it doesn't have built-in presets. It was playing very nicely with everything set to minimum, but there was a large hit to performance with everything maxed out, though you could find a nice middle ground by tweaking the settings more. Let's also check out some more demanding games. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode, and it played well enough at low and medium settings. High wasn't bad, but Ultra was noticeably stuttery. Control was tested walking through the start of the game. I don't have much experience playing this game yet, but it played okay at low settings, started slowing down a bit at medium, then was chugging at Ultra. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the game's built-in benchmark, and given this seems to be fairly GPU heavy, it's no surprise that the results are on the lower side at higher settings. Borderlands 3 was tested with the built-in benchmark, and 60 FPS averages and above were still reached at low settings. Ghost Recon Breakpoint was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and I was only seeing higher than 60 FPS averages at low settings in this test. Again, not surprising as it's somewhat resource heavy. Next, let's take a look at how this config of the Prestige 15 compares with other laptops. Use these results as a rough guide only, as they were tested at different times with different drivers. In Battlefield 5, I've got the Prestige 15 highlighted in red, and due to it having one of the lowest GPUs I've tested, it's down the bottom of the graph. Again, this isn't a gaming laptop, and it can run the game just fine at lower settings. These are the results from Shadow of the Tomb Raider with the built-in benchmark at highest settings. This time, it wasn't quite as far behind the other machines with higher powered graphics. These are the results from Far Cry 5 with ultra settings in the built-in benchmark. This time, it's actually beating the L340 despite it having a better GPU. Probably as this is a CPU-heavy test, and the L340 has a quad-core with single-channel memory. If you want to see more games, check the card in the top right to see results from 18 games. As the Prestige 15 has two Thunderbolt 3 ports, it should be possible to attach an external GPU enclosure to improve gaming performance. But I'll test this out in a future video. Now for the benchmarking tools. I've tested Heaven, Valley, and Superposition from Unigine, as well as Firestrike and TimeSpy from 3D Mark. Just pause the video if you want a detailed look at these results. I've used Crystal DiskMark to test the 512GB NVMe M.2 SSD, and the speeds were quite fair. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to test the micro SD slot as I don't have cards that size. For updated pricing, check the links in the description, as prices will change over time. At the time of recording, in the US, the MSI Prestige 15 with these same specs is going for $1,400 US. Here in Australia, it's going for 2,300 Australian dollars, though it's currently on sale. There are of course cheaper and more powerful gaming laptops available, but they're typically larger, heavier, and have much worse battery life. With all of that in mind, let's conclude by looking at the good and bad aspects of the Prestige 15 laptop. The biggest issue of note was that when under heavy combined CPU and GPU load, the 90-watt power brick didn't seem to be adequate. This does at least mean that the power brick is on the smaller size for travel. Full performance wasn't too far off, and this was only when fully loading up both the processor and graphics together, though undervolting did help out a bit. The power and thermal limits of the machine weren't actually being reached, but it did get hot with the fans in auto mode. However, by raising these, temperatures dropped back substantially. In CPU-only workloads like Cinebench, the i7-10710U was quite impressive compared to an i7-9750H. Look out for my upcoming comparison video between these two. In terms of GPU performance, such as gaming, the limitation here was the 35-watt 1650 Max-Q, though it was still capable of light gaming with lower settings, and should be enough to accelerate various creator-specific tasks like video editing. Despite being on the thinner and lighter side, it's still got two M.2 slots, and both memory slots are user upgradable. I liked typing on the keyboard, though the presses felt a little shallow. And I had no problems using the wider touchpad, which had good palm rejection and a fast-acting fingerprint scanner. For the most part, the MSI Prestige 15 is a good portable laptop for content creators with a solid metal build. It's got two Type-C ports with Thunderbolt 3 support, micro SD card slot, though personally I would have preferred full size, excellent battery life, and a decent screen all in a thinner and lighter package. The 1080p screen was about average, though the optional 4K panel should be much better. If you're planning on doing pro-level photo or video editing, I'd probably go for that one for the better color gamut and accuracy. Let me know what you thought about the MSI Prestige 15 laptop down in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, consider getting subscribed for future laptop reviews and tech videos like this one.